The massive warship loomed over Earth like a storm cloud ready to burst. Inside the command center, High Commander Zex Thor's mandibles twitched with anticipation as he studied the holographic display of the human city below. His species had conquered 17 worlds across 3 galaxies, yet these humans had stubbornly resisted for months. But today would be different. Today he would unleash their secret weapon. Release the havoc beast, he growled, his crystalline eyes glinting with malice. The crew members around him tensed, some even taking involuntary steps backward. They had all heard stories of the genetically engineered monster, a creature bred for war, with razor-sharp claws that could tear through battleship armor and jaws strong enough to crush tanks. Down on Earth, Sarah Chen, leader of the human resistance in New Pacific City, peered through her binoculars at the alien vessel. The morning sun glinted off its obsidian surface as something large detached from its belly. Movement from the mothership, she reported into her comm unit. They're dropping something. The object plummeted through the atmosphere, its metal shell glowing red-hot. It crashed into the abandoned stadium with an earth-shaking boom, leaving a crater in what used to be the football field. Sarah's team watched from their hidden position as the smoke cleared, weapons ready. The pod's sides split open with a hydraulic hiss. Sarah expected to see some horrifying monstrosity emerge, perhaps something with multiple heads or acid-dripping fangs. Instead, what bounded out made her do a double take. It looked like a puppy, a fluffy, golden-furred puppy with oversized paws and floppy ears. "Is this some kind of joke?" her second-in-command whispered. The puppy sat down, tilted its head, and let out an adorable woof. Up in the warship, Zex Thor stared at his view screen in mounting horror. "What is the meaning of this? Where's my havoc beast?" He rounded on his chief geneticist. "Explain." The scientist frantically checked his data tablets. There must have been a mix-up in the cloning chambers, Commander. This specimen appears to be from Earth's Canis lupus familiaris species, specifically what they call a golden retriever." "A what?" Zex Thor's voice reached a pitch that made the bridge windows vibrate. Back on the ground, Sarah watched in disbelief as the puppy rolled onto its back, clearly asking for belly rubs. Her training told her to be cautious. This had to be a trap. But something in those big brown eyes made her want to trust this unexpected visitor. "Ma'am," one of her soldiers said, "what are your orders?" Sarah made a decision that would change the course of the war. "Cover me," she said, stepping out from their hiding spot. The puppy's tail started wagging as she approached, thumping against the ground with pure joy. As she knelt down to pet the golden ball of fluff, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Who would have thought that the alien's greatest weapon would turn out to be humanity's oldest friend? But what Sarah didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this wasn't just any puppy, and the real reason the aliens had sent it was far more complex than anyone could have imagined. As the puppy leaned into her touch, something sparked in its eyes, something that suggested there was much more to this adorable creature than met the eye. Sarah's team watched nervously as she carried the puppy back to their underground base. The Resistance's medical officer, Dr. Chen, no relation to Sarah, insisted on running some basic scans just to be safe. The puppy sat patiently through the whole process, occasionally licking the doctor's hand when it got close enough. "Well, this is interesting," Dr. Chen said, frowning at his tablet. "According to these readings, this little guy's brain activity is off the charts. I'm seeing patterns that shouldn't be possible in a canine brain." Sarah scratched behind the puppy's ears, earning a happy tail wag. Could it be some kind of alien tech? "That's just it. I'm not detecting any cybernetic implants or genetic modifications. Whatever this puppy is, it seems to be completely organic. Just different." Up in the alien warship, Commander Zex Thor was having the worst day of his military career. Not only had they accidentally deployed the wrong specimen, but now his superiors were demanding answers. The holographic projection of Admiral Vectera filled his command center, her crystalline eyes blazing with fury. "You mean to tell me," she hissed, "that Project Genesis is now in human hands? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Zexthor shifted uncomfortably. With all due respect, Admiral, it's just a puppy. We can simply launch another attack and... Just a puppy. The Admiral's voice could have frozen plasma. That puppy is the result of 1,000 years of research. We didn't clone it from Earth's canines. We engineered it based on them. It's the perfect infiltration unit, designed to exploit the humans' greatest weakness, their capacity for love. Back on Earth, the puppy had already won over most of the resistance fighters. They'd named him Scout, and despite Sarah's initial reservations, she had to admit there was something special about him. He seemed to understand complex commands instantly, and she could have sworn he was actually paying attention during their strategy meetings. One evening, as Sarah was reviewing defense plans in her quarters, Scout sat up suddenly, ears perked. A low growl rumbled in his throat, something she'd never heard from him before. Seconds later, the base's proximity alarms went off. Multiple contacts approaching from the north. A voice crackled over the comm. They're using some kind of cloaking tech. We didn't see them until they were right on top of us. Sarah grabbed her gear, but Scout was already at the door. His whole demeanor changed. Gone was the playful puppy. In his place stood a focused, alert creature with an almost visible aura of power. His golden fur seemed to shimmer with an inner light. As they raced through the corridors, Sarah noticed something else. Scout's paw prints were leaving tiny traces of glowing energy on the floor, like starlight trapped in dewdrops. Whatever he truly was, whatever the aliens had designed him to be, it was starting to emerge. They reached the base's main entrance just as the first explosion hit. Through the smoke and chaos, Sarah caught a glimpse of dark shapes moving with inhuman speed. Scout stepped forward, placing himself between her and the threat. The air around him began to crackle with energy, and for a split second, Sarah thought she saw something impossible, the shadow of massive wings spreading from his back. But before she could process what she was seeing, the battle began. The alien strike force moved like living shadows, their armor absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Sarah counted at least 12 of them, each armed with weapons that hummed with strange energy. But Scout didn't back down. The small golden puppy stood his ground, and the aliens actually hesitated. Containment protocol. Their leader barked in a harsh, mechanical voice. The asset must not be damaged. Scout's transformation began slowly at first, a subtle golden glow that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. His fur rippled like wheat in a summer breeze, each strand catching and holding light until he blazed like a miniature sun. Sarah had to shield her eyes, but she couldn't look away. The resistance fighters watched in awe as Scout grew, not into some monster, but into something majestic. His form shifted and flowed like liquid starlight, those familiar floppy ears elongating into elegant shapes that resembled both wings and solar sails. His tail became a streaming banner of pure energy. By the stars, Dr. Chen whispered, his scanner forgotten in his slack grip. He's not just a genetic experiment. He's a bridge. Sarah knew exactly what he meant. Looking at Scout now was like staring into a sunset over the ocean. Beautiful, but somehow too vast for human minds to fully comprehend. Yet he was still unmistakably a dog, still undeniably their friend. When he turned to look at her, those warm brown eyes were the same ones that had begged for belly rubs just days ago. Up in orbit, alarms blared through the alien command ship. Commander Zexthor watched in horror as his monitoring systems went haywire. Impossible, he breathed. The genetic lockouts, the behavioral constraints. Admiral Vextera's hologram appeared again, but this time her expression held something new. Fear. You fool. The lockouts weren't to control the asset. They were to control the process. Do you know what happens when a quantum-bonded guardian chooses its own path? The answer came in the form of a massive energy surge from the planet below. Scout's transformation had triggered something, a cascade of power that reached into the very fabric of space around Earth. Golden light raced through the atmosphere in intricate patterns, forming what looked like a vast, beautiful circuit board written in pure energy. Sarah felt a gentle touch in her mind. Scout, sharing not just thoughts but possibilities. She saw flashes of other worlds, of countless species that had faced the same choice Earth now faced. She understood then that this wasn't just about invasion or resistance. It was about evolution, about reaching for something greater. The alien strike team raised their weapons, but their hands shook. They knew what Scout had become, what he had always been meant to become. Not a weapon, but a key. Not an infiltrator, but an illuminator. Scout raised his head and let out a sound that was part bark, part song, and part starburst. The golden light intensified, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. In that moment, Sarah realized they stood on the edge of something unprecedented. The next few seconds would determine not just the fate of the war, but perhaps the fate of both species. Above them, the alien command ship's engines flared to life. Whether Zexthor planned to retreat or launch a final, desperate attack, Sarah couldn't tell. Scout tensed, power gathering around him like a breaking wave, ready to unleash something that would change everything. The resistance fighters gripped their weapons, the aliens raised their guns, and Scout's energy reached its peak. The future of two civilizations balanced on a knife's edge, about to tip one way or the other. Just as Scout's power reached its crescendo, a new sound cut through the tension, a high-pitched whine that made everyone's teeth ache. A second alien ship, far larger than Zexthor's command vessel, burst through the cloud cover. Its design was completely different, smooth, organic curves instead of sharp angles, and it gleamed with a pearlescent sheen that reminded Sarah of seashells. "Stand down, Zexthor." A melodious voice boomed across all frequencies. "You've interfered enough with the awakening protocol." Scout's ears perked up at the voice, but he maintained his protective stance in front of Sarah. The golden energy surrounding him pulsed in complex patterns, almost like it was communicating. "The Guardians," Admiral Vechterra's hologram whispered, her crystalline eyes wide with recognition. "The Ancient Ones have returned." The new ship released hundreds of smaller pods, but instead of crashing like weapons, they descended gently like falling leaves. Each one opened to reveal a different animal. Wolves with fur like starlight, eagles trailing cosmic fire, dolphins that seemed to swim through air itself. Every creature glowed with the same golden energy as Scout. "We scattered the seeds across 1,000 worlds." The voice from the ship continued. "On each planet, we chose the species that best embodied the noble qualities we sought: loyalty, courage, wisdom. Earth's canines were among our greatest successes." Sarah felt Scout press against her leg, still protecting her even as his kin arrived. She placed her hand on his head, feeling the warm pulse of energy flowing through him. "You're not just a puppy," she said softly. "You're their ambassador." The alien strike team suddenly found themselves surrounded by the transformed animals. Their advanced weapons seemed primitive compared to the raw power radiating from these celestial beings. One by one, they lowered their guns. But Commander Zexthor wasn't ready to surrender. His ship's main cannon began charging, its angry red glow a stark contrast to the golden light below. "If we can't have the asset, then nobody." He never finished the sentence. His ship's systems went dark, caught in some kind of field emanating from the Guardian vessel. The massive warship hung helpless in the sky like a dead metal whale. "Your species was given a choice, Zexthor." The Guardian's voice held infinite sadness. "When you found your own awakened ones, you chose to try and weaponize them instead of learning from them. That path ends today." The transformed animals began to move in perfect synchronization, their combined energy forming patterns in the air that looked like the most complex mathematics made visible. Scout barked once, and Sarah somehow understood what was about to happen. "Everyone, clear the area." She shouted to her resistance fighters. "They're about to." A blinding flash lit up the sky, and for a moment, Sarah thought she glimpsed something impossible through the golden light. Other dimensions, other possibilities, doors opening to places human minds couldn't comprehend. Scout turned to her, and in his eyes she saw galaxies spinning. The real question, the Guardian voice resonated in everyone's minds, is what choice will humanity make? And that's when Sarah realized this wasn't just about ending a war. This was about the next step in human evolution. Scout hadn't been sent to infiltrate or destroy. He'd been sent to prepare them. But prepare them for what? The answer hung in the air like a shimmering promise, just out of reach, as reality itself seemed to hold its breath for humanity's response. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. Before we make any choice, I need to know what happened to the other civilizations who faced this moment. The Guardian ship shimmered, projecting images in the air of distant worlds and strange species. Some showed societies transformed, living in harmony with their awakened companions. Others revealed only empty ruins, worlds that had rejected the gift and chosen isolation instead. Scout pressed his glowing form against Sarah's side, sharing glimpses of what could be. She saw humanity reaching for the stars not through conquest or fear, but through understanding. The golden energy that filled him wasn't a weapon. It was a bridge between what they were and what they could become. The choice must be freely made, the Guardian voice explained. But be warned, it must be unanimous. One person's fear can unravel everything. That's when Commander Zexthor made his final move. His ship's backup systems sputtered to life, and a single escape pod launched toward Earth. The pod crashed nearby, and Zexthor emerged wielding an ancient device that pulsed with dark energy. "You don't understand," he snarled. "I've seen what happens when species evolve beyond control. The chaos, the loss of order. I won't allow." Scout moved faster than thought. The golden puppy crossed the space between them in a blur of light, but instead of attacking, he simply sat down in front of the alien commander. Then he did something that changed everything. He wagged his tail and looked up at Zexthor with those big, hopeful eyes. The ancient weapon trembled in Zexthor's hands as memory after memory flooded through him. His own world's guardian, a creature like a cross between a bird and a shooting star, which he had loved as a child before the military took it away. The warmth he'd felt then, the pure joy of connection, all buried under years of conditioning and fear. I was there when they weaponized our guardian. Zexthor's voice cracked. I helped them do it, but I was wrong. We were all wrong. The dark device slipped from his fingers as Scout gently headbutted his leg. The alien commander fell to his knees, and for the first time in centuries, he reached out to pet a dog. The effect was immediate and stunning. The golden energy surrounding Scout expanded, encompassing both Sarah and Zexthor. In that moment, they shared something profound. Not just understanding, but true connection. Human, alien, and guardian, bridging gaps that had seemed insurmountable. Throughout the world, other dogs began to glow. From family pets to strays, each one became a beacon of transformation. But instead of changing humanity, they were changing with humanity, growing together into something entirely new. This is the true awakening. The guardian voice resonated with joy. Not one species uplifting another, but all species rising together. Sarah watched in awe as golden light spiraled up from every corner of the globe. Dogs and humans together were weaving a new future. But just as the transformation reached its peak, Scout's ears suddenly perked up. He turned toward the stars with an alert expression that Sarah knew well. The same look he got when he heard something no one else could detect. The Guardian ship's voice held a note of concern. "We're detecting an anomaly. Something's coming through the quantum barriers. Something unexpected." Scout barked once, a sound that somehow contained both warning and welcome. The sky above them began to ripple like disturbed water, and through that ripple came a sight that no one, not even the ancient guardians, had anticipated. Through the quantum ripple emerged thousands of glowing shapes, cats, each one radiating with their own unique energy signature. Unlike the golden light of the dogs, they shimmered with all the colors of the aurora borealis. Leading them was a simple orange tabby, its whiskers trailing stardust. "Impossible." The guardian voice actually sounded stunned. "We never what?" Sarah asked, trying not to laugh as Scout's tail wagged frantically at the sight of the cats. "We never seeded Earth with a second guardian species," the voice explained. "The cats, they evolved themselves." The tabby cat landed gracefully in front of Scout, and the two animals touched noses. The energy surrounding them, gold and aurora, swirled together in breathtaking patterns. Suddenly, Sarah understood. While dogs had been chosen to guide humanity toward connection and cooperation, cats had chosen themselves to teach independence and mystery. Both were needed for true balance. Zexthor watched in amazement as the cats approached his soldiers, their energy dissolving the dark military armor into stardust. All this time, he whispered, we thought we needed to control evolution, but evolution had its own plans. The next few hours were extraordinary. Around the world, dogs and cats began working together, their combined energies helping humanity see new possibilities. Dogs showed humans how to build bridges between hearts, while cats taught them how to keep their individual spark alive within the greater connection. It wasn't about losing yourself to evolution. It was about becoming more deeply who you were always meant to be. Admiral Vextera's hologram had long since faded, but reports came in that her fleet was standing down across the galaxy. The appearance of the self-evolved cats had shaken the aliens' belief in controlled advancement. Nature, they realized, had its own wisdom. 1 week later, Sarah sat on a hilltop watching the sunrise with Scout on one side and the orange tabby, now named Nova, on the other. The world was changing, but not in the dramatic way everyone had feared. Instead of a sudden transformation, it was more like a gradual awakening. Humans were learning to understand their pets at a deeper level, and in doing so, they were understanding themselves better too. You knew, didn't you? She asked Scout, scratching behind his still floppy ears. You knew we just needed to remember how to connect. Scout's tail thumped against the ground as he shared a gentle thought image with her. Countless worlds spinning through space, each one growing at its own pace, each one finding its own way to the stars. The cats had shown that there wasn't just one path to evolution. Every species, every individual had their own journey to make. The Guardian ship had departed days ago, leaving behind a simple message. Watch and learn from your companions. They never forgot what humans sometimes have, that the greatest powers in the universe are love, trust, and the courage to be exactly who you are. These days, if you look carefully, you might see dogs and cats glowing softly as they play with their humans, not with the intense light of those first moments, but with a gentle radiance that reminds us all of the magic we share. And sometimes, on quiet nights, you might hear Scout barking at the stars, not to warn of invasion, but to say hello to new friends across the cosmos. As for Commander Zexthor, he retired from the military and opened an interplanetary pet shelter. Last Sarah heard, he had adopted 3 cats and a golden retriever puppy of his own. After all, as Scout had shown them, sometimes the fiercest beast turns out to be the best friend you never knew you needed. You just have to be brave enough to offer a belly rub and see what happens next.